Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I had flown down to Philly for a week-long business trip. Little did I know that it would turn into a tale of vengeance that would satisfy even the most avid subscribers of r/Pro Revenge. My trip was relatively uneventful until that fateful Friday when I encountered a cab ride I would never forget. The week had been a whirlwind of meetings and presentations, and finally, it was time to head back home. I called a client and they promptly arranged a cab to take me to the airport. I had used the same cab company throughout my stay, and they had been reliable up until this point. As I settled into the back seat of the cab, I couldn't help but notice that something was off. The driver seemed distracted, constantly fiddling with his phone and not paying proper attention to the road. I nervously cleared my throat and politely asked him to focus on the road. A few miles into the journey, disaster struck. The distracted driver collided with another car. Thankfully, it wasn't a high-speed collision, but it was enough to jolt us and send our belongings flying. Fortunately, no one was injured, and both drivers bowled over to assess the damage. I knew I had to do the responsible thing and provide a statement to the police about the accident. While waiting for the cops to arrive, I looked at the taxi meter and noticed it was still running, despite our unplanned stop. I pointed this out to the driver, who seemed unfazed by the whole situation. After what felt like an eternity, the police arrived and I explained the circumstances of the accident. The cop was worried about my well-being due to the black eye I had sustained earlier in the week, but I assured him I was fine. I just wanted to get to the airport and make my flight. As I waited for the police report, I realized that the cab driver was making no effort to stop the meter from running. I called him out on it and he reluctantly turned it off. By the time the ordeal was over, I had been at the accident scene for close to an hour. When I finally got into a new cab that the company had sent, I knew I was running out of time to catch my flight. I asked the new driver to hurry as much as possible, and he did his best to make up for the lost time. But the damage had already been done and I would have to rush to make it to the airport. I couldn't believe the audacity of the cab company. You'd think that if one of their drivers had an accident with a passenger in the car, they would prioritize getting that passenger to their destination safely. Instead, not only did the second driver ask me to pay for the ride, but he also informed me that the owner of the cab company insisted that I pay for the first cab meter as well. I couldn't help but feel a burning sense of injustice. I calmly explained to the second driver that while I understood the law allowed them to charge me for the ride, common decency and good business practice should dictate otherwise. I told him that if they hadn't charged me, I would have given him a generous tip. But now, as I was offended by their behavior, he would receive no tip from me. And then I hatched a plan that would not only seek justice for myself, but also teach this cab company a lesson they would never forget. You see, my client in Philly was a major bank, not Bank of America, but one of similar size. They frequently had consultants and contractors like me coming in to work with them, and they always relied on this cab company for local transportation. Knowing that I would be returning to Philly in just 2 weeks, I decided to take matters into my own hands. On Monday morning, I made a call to my contact at the bank. I explained the entire ordeal from the accident to the unjust fare charges, and I asked him ever so politely to find another cab company for me to use during my upcoming visit. My contact at the bank was horrified by my story. They assured me that they, their employees, and any consultants or contractors working with them would never use that cab company again. They were adamant about finding a more reliable and customer-friendly transportation service for their business needs. Over the next 2 weeks, my contact followed through on their promise. They researched and contracted with a new, reputable cab company to provide transportation services for their clients and employees. It was a considerable blow to the cab company that had wronged me. When I returned to Philly for my next business trip, I was delighted to find that the new cab company provided excellent service. The drivers were professional, the cars were well maintained, and there was a noticeable absence of the shitty practices that had marred my previous experience. As the months went by, the original cab company saw a significant drop in business from my clients and others in the area. Word had spread about their unscrupulous practices and lack of concern for passenger safety. They struggled to compete with a new reputable cab company that had gained favor with the bank and its clients. The cab company's reputation continued to plummet, and it wasn't long before they began losing contracts with other local businesses as well. Their revenue took a nosedive, and they were forced to make cutbacks to stay afloat. It was a satisfying sight to see them face the consequences of their horrible actions. In the end, I had my revenge, not through anger or retaliation, but by using the power of word of mouth and the influence of a major client. Okay, so for backstory. This happened several years ago now, back when I was still in high school, living a hell of a life in a bad sense. I had no friends, no support, nothing a kid in school really wanted. It was an international school in Germany, so it was full of entitled and elitist kids, which just made it worse. On top of that, I was being bullied by several people in my year, as well as a few from the year above me. Now I'm big, tough gal on the outside, 6'3" tall and built like a tree, but safety comes in numbers, and I wasn't violent. I just looked the part, so they abused that. I was bullied daily for being too big, not looking good, being erratic due to my ADHD, and several things I had done when I was much younger, like once biting a kid in self-defense and using my thumb to bite on during times of stress, which looked like suckling. I was also ostracized from pretty much all schoolyard activities, lunch groups, clubs, and anything else where people congregate. I lived life on the fringe of my school, but I eventually got comfortable with it and made it my lot in this part of life to be alone and to not expect or depend on friendships. Now, one day, I realized people were actually talking to me and acting like I was their friend or something like that, even though none of these people had ever said anything nice to me in my life, nor had I ever spoken to them before. So there was no reason we will be friends. I, being the guarded, paranoid teen I was, just kinda played it off awkwardly and went about my business. This went on for about 3 to 4 weeks until I was cornered outside in a schoolyard sitting by a tree, reading a book by a guy from a year above me. I still remember the conversation that occurred to this day, as I do the others, so I will be writing them down for extra details. The bully says, "So why the hell are you ignoring me?" "Because I don't like you. I've never liked you, and we don't even know each other beyond you bullying me in previous years. But that's in the past, so it doesn't matter, right? Why won't you just accept me and stop ignoring me?" Now, being the lone socially awkward girl that I was, I thought this dude was asking me out, and I panicked that he was trying to force me into a relationship with him. So I closed my book and got up. He was taller than me, so that wasn't too easy. I tell him, "Accept you? Are you crazy? No way. No. I'm not dating you." "What? Dating? What are you talking about?" "I meant my friend request on X social network." So now I just looked at him confused and shook my head at that, but being paranoid, I also said, "I didn't get that yet." To which he replied, "Oh, I'll send it to you again then. Sorry." And then he just walked off nonchalantly, like he didn't just corner me against a tree in public. And there were some people around staring at me with wide eyes, and I printed all their faces into my brain. Fast forward about a week in which this same thing kept happening with several of my bullies and people I had never so much as known to even exist. Simply because I never shared any of my classes with them. I grew more and more paranoid as time went by until finally I decided to look at the website to see what was going on. And there I was, at least a profile of me was. There was cool pictures in it, pictures that had been taken during class trips, pictures that my parents had on their Facebook accounts of me with everyone else cropped out. There was my age, my height, my name, but no birth date or anything else. My heart dropped to my shoes. I was destroyed. But then there was a spark of revenge coming on. See, I knew who the people that had started badgering me about this profile were. I knew which of my bullies at the time were most active on a social media platform. I knew the people they hung out with and called their friends. I was a very observant teenager due to always having to be on guard. So I started compiling a list of all the pictures that had been pulled from social media and otherwise been placed without my prior knowledge. With my dad, who did photo editing to make his nature photography really stand out, as well as him knowing a good bit of computer stuff. I worked for him for 2 weeks to put everything together with timestamps and all. I didn't go to the counselor, whom I had a terrible relationship with, since he had on several occasions told me to simply forget that I was being bullied, and instead took it straight to my school's principal, a man who has publicly said to my face that maybe I should fail myself for the year because I obviously wasn't cut out for this yet. I had serious issues following a lot of classes because I was being attacked in them sometimes and I didn't do homework, which was a part of one's grade, because I just couldn't bring school home due to the stress it caused. The principal laughed it off as a harmless prank. My identity being stolen and used on social media was harmless. He said this to my face, with my dad present in a room with us. While I sat there in stunned silence, my dad went on a rant that an identity being stolen wasn't harmless, and that this was no way a school's principal should be reacting to news about a student's distress about that fact. The principal went on to say that if it bothered us that much, we could just move schools. This was the only international school even remotely close to where we lived at the time, with the next nearest one being at least a 2-hour round-trip commute. So he would have known that moving wasn't an option. He just didn't care. Me and my dad left the meeting with my dad looking very angry and with me feeling weak and defeated. Then my dad said, "Do you know who's behind this?" I told him I didn't know exactly. All I knew was the people who had badgered me about it first, and the people they were friends with. Then my dad suggested we go to the police. And me being B, angsty, terrified high schooler, was terrified at the thought, but at the same time, I wanted this to end. So I agreed. Turns out that meticulously piled picture evidence of pictures I never made, nor wanted to be made, nor wanted to be posted, along with my vehement testimony that I never made nor wanted that profile, was enough for the chief of the station that we were at to be able to consider actually beginning to investigate into the identity fraud case. The testimony of my father against my principal was also enough to have the police work together with the school's administrative board to investigate the principal for negligence. I helped the police with frequent descriptions of people who had haunted me about it, and about the several smaller things I had heard the principal say, as well as what he'd say to my face on several earlier occasions. The "isn't fit for the school" statement. I was relishing this ability to finally speak out about the things that I had felt, the things that had been said, the things that had been done to me, and was going into full, complete detail of everything that my bullies had ever done, even before this identity fraud thing. Somehow this seemed to spur the investigating officer to look deeper, even pull in a cyber consultant to start tracking who made the account. 2 more weeks later, the person who first approached me, a guy who I share my second language English class with, comes up to me, and in this barely sarcastic tone asks me why I stopped being active on a friend's website. I told him I'd never been active there, and he walked a little too close. "Oh, come on, you've been talking to people for weeks, and then a few days ago, you just stopped. What gives?" This set off all the alarm bells in my head. I told him the same thing again, that I'd never been active on a site, nor that I ever wanted to be. Then I left, elbowing my way past him as he tried moving closer to block my path. Several days later, I'm called into the director's office over the school's intercom system. I call my dad on the way there and he tells me he's already there. I walked there dreading what was going on. Once I got there, this is what I saw inside. My dad standing next to a police officer. The director is sitting at his desk, the principal was in front of the desk looking smug as hell. 3 kids and their parents were also in a room. One of the moms looked like she was about to murder someone, one dad looked very defeated and another mom looked super smug. I realized this was a disciplinary meeting and smiled. The police officer looked at the director, who then looked at my dad, who gave a nod to me. I was asked to tell my whole story again. I told all the stuff I said about the others here. The account online, the bullying, and the principal's repeated telling me to my face that I wasn't fit to be in that school. The police officer then talked about how there was evidence that these 3 kids had worked together to fabricate the account, and that the parents stood to be charged with negligence, with the kids standing to be tried as minors for identity theft. And if I were to press charges. The smug mom then tried to leverage me by observing that the kids have been nicer to me because of it, and that I should let them be kids. The principal just kind of sat there defeated and was subsequently fired and told to vacate his office and the premises. My dad wanted to say something to the mom, but I beat him to it. I still remember the glee in my heart. Well, I would also like to be a kid whose likeness isn't used online without me knowing or wanting it there. I would like to not have to fear for my own life and people's thoughts of me, but you don't care about that. So why should I listen to you? I then turned to the police officer and said that we wanted to press charges. More police officers came in and the parents and kids were taken away. I stayed at school and some people actually looked at me like I was a hero after that, while some resented me forever after that incident as well. I have never one moment regretted suing those people and getting the principal fired, and to this day, it's one of my proudest moments. The principal ended up getting fired the day of the meeting and was banned from teaching in our province again for the next 20 years. Basically, past retirement. In court, he was charged with negligence of duty and fined 2,000 euros. All 3 kids were expelled, effective immediately. They were found guilty of identity theft as a minor and sentenced to a month of community service. All the parents were charged with negligence of parental duty and a few hours of community service, and the mom who said that the kids should be left alone because they were just kids and who had encouraged her child was charged with misdemeanor encouragement and fined 1,000 euros. Hi! I'm planning a lovely bridesmaid entourage for my wedding consisting of my beautiful sister and cousins. We are all on very good terms. Today I told my sister that I thought of navy blue dresses for bridesmaids. I sent her a couple pictures very enthusiastically. I thought it's elegant, matches with the suits and gives a nice pop to the white wedding dress on pictures. The response from my sister was instant. You can't be serious. I won't wear that. Everyone will hate that. Or is it that you want all of us to look like crap? I heard there are weddings where the bride wants to make bridesmaid look intentionally bad. That's probably your plan, isn't it? Whoa. She said her color type is autumn and navy looks the worst on that complexion. My cousins, she said, are also autumn and I will make them look the worst too. After my heart sank, I started looking for alternate colors on this season's color wheel thing. I sent her a couple of alternatives suggested, different deep blues. She replied that she then doesn't want to be my bridesmaid but wants to be pretty. She would attend all the getting ready with the girls but won't wear the matching dress. I read this happens in bridal parties. There is usually one difficult person. The suggestion is to ask them to step down as bridesmaid. For me, it obviously didn't come to that as my sister stepped down without bad discussion. Her point of view is that I should care about people feeling good at my wedding and I don't have much empathy. I cried for a bit, then I told my sister honestly that after this I will have a sad and angry feeling every time I'd look at her at the wedding, in her pretty dress, being satisfied with herself at my expense. And maybe it's best if she's not there then. Am I the jerk here? And now some comments on the post. Someone saying you're not the jerk. Remove your sister from the bridal party. Go with the color you have chosen, it's your wedding, not hers. And if she wants to attend the girls getting ready, then she needs to accept her responsibilities and dress like the rest of them. If you're not at the bridal party, you don't get to do the fun stuff. You, as a bride, don't have to have anyone there that A. you don't want, and B. will make you sad when you look back on the pictures. Another commenter adds, "You're not the jerk." For someone saying you have no empathy, her statement regarding your dress choices were really rude and insulting. It sounds like you were willing to compromise and find dresses that both you and your wedding party liked. Your sister took things to the extreme really quickly. I wasn't very kind to you.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.